Guys, we have a new Honda HR-V, and this design, I don't know, it feels a little not sure about it. So we're gonna have a look at the front side and the rear in this video and talk about this design, comparing it to the old one, let you know what I think about it and what's a little weird about it as well. So this is powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder, cranking out 158 horsepower, and prices start at a very reasonable $25,000 going up to $30,000 for the top of the range, where you get pretty cool features. Actually, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also get wireless charging for your phones. I think it's a really cool car for a great price, but that's not what we're focusing on here on this channel. We focus on the design. So what we're gonna do is talk about the front end first of all, then the side, and then the rear, and last but not least, let's have a look at the interior of the new Honda HR-V. The previous generation, let's have a look at this. This looks actually pretty beautiful to me. It has nice flow to it, as you can see. We have this framing of the front end, looks really cool, very traditional for Honda to have this dip in the middle. And we also have this bar in the middle, which is also very Honda-ish, to have this bar. And then you have the logo sitting pretty large in the middle. This is a surprisingly large logo to have on this car. And in addition to that, we have a couple of styling lines right here, as you can see, and the hood looks very clean as well. We have some lines that doesn't really connect to anything. You have a bit of an angle change in this gray piece right here, where this line meets that thing, but I don't think that's defined enough to have this sharp of a line kind of go into that piece. Overall, I think this front end has a good direction to it, so everything is pointing down towards a center point, and also kind of have the same kind of flow to it in the front end. It looks like a nice front end. It's starting to look a little dated with this styling, compared, for example, to the new Honda Civic, which looks a lot different than this. And I think that's where Honda took some inspiration from. They were probably designed at the same time, the HR-V and the Civic, around the same time at least. But let's have a look at the new one right here. So compare this old HR-V to the new HR-V down here. And this just looks, it looks weird. I don't know what it is. I think the elements just look out of place, and the positioning of them and angles of everything. For example, the hood here on the old one have a nice slope to it. On the new one, it's almost flat all the way to this point, when it just starts to dive straight down with a very sharp angle up top here. So it has like a platform up here, and then everything just dips down very quickly into these corners right here. So I guess you could say it has some line flow to it from this line going into the corners of the intake in the front end. But then you have the positioning of everything. So the headlights are sitting up here, which feels like they're sitting a little too high maybe, and they don't seem to have any connection to the grille either. The grille is a completely separate element from everything else in the front end. It looks almost utilitarian, almost like a military vehicle or something like that. I don't know why it feels utilitarian more than the Honda Civic, for example. The Honda Civic looks beautiful in front end. I just don't think that design language has translated as well in the HR-V, because we have so many different angles in the front end and no connection between this graphic feature, and of course this graphic feature. This just looks like an overstyled piece of plastic that they just slapped on. And look at this, it has a curvature right here, but it doesn't have any sort of connection to the grille at all. It just sits here alone. So does the headlight. The headlight has zero connection to the grille. If we follow these lines, for example, it doesn't connect to anything up here. It doesn't really connect to anything down here, and nothing in this corner as well. So it feels like they just slapped the Honda Civic features on the front end, made it longer, and hoped for the best. And I don't think it really worked out in the Honda HR-V, but that's just my opinion. Let's have a look at the side view, and this is where you can clearly tell that we're in a new era of design language for Honda specifically, because look at this. I always thought that this old HR-V I always thought that these graphics looked cool, but they also looked very dated. This looks almost like a 90s car to me. The styling of the treatment of the surfaces, or and maybe not 90s, but early 2000s for sure. It looks pretty nice. I mean, we have some nice line flow going in here. You see this curvature creating the edge for the headlights, which looks nice. And then we have a very organic looking greenhouse with this line then cutting into the body. This is the typical HRV line that we've seen in the side view. If you want to have a look at, if you want to know what car you're looking at, just look at this cut into the body right here, and you know that you're looking at the old HRV. I do like these wheels, and I do like the black plastic cladding around the wheel arches right here. It reduces the weight and makes it look a little lighter than what it probably is. It's probably a light car, but visually it looks more like less mass on the car when you have that, specifically on a crossover like this. I kind of prefer black cladding on crossovers. And then we have the same kind of black cladding going down here in the bottom as well. And looking at the new one, it's completely stripped of any type of styling in this surface. It's like a calm Atlantic Ocean with zero waves. It's just very clean and very smooth surfacing here, which I really like. I think it looks cool when we focus on proportions and graphic features more than styling in the body panels itself. That is a global trend right now. To design cars like this with less styling, more focus on the proportions to create some brand identity, and of course the graphic styling, meaning the headlights and the taillights and the front fascia of the car. It looks very nice and clean. We have this line, one single line cutting into the lower part of the car and creating the bumper in the rear as well. Very nicely done. The proportions look a lot different from the previous generation. I think honestly, if I just look at the proportions, not look at the styling, I prefer this styling of the body panels, but I prefer these proportions to the HRV. I think this looks a lot sportier, feels like a smaller, more nimbler car, and I definitely prefer these wheels over these wheels down here. The sport trim would be the one I would go for. That's the middle trim. Then you get blacked out graphics, and you also get 18-inch wheels with the sport trim only. And I would probably want to have maybe 19s on this HRV because it looks a lot better filling out the wheelhouses right here. And as you know, crossovers are pretty much never going to go off-road anyway, so you might as well put some nice wheels and tires on there that are suitable more for road use than for off-road use. And you can get the HRV as a standard front-wheel drive. You also have the option in every trim level to get it in all-wheel drive, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look at the rear view right here. This is where I definitely think this looks like a 2000s car, because look at the graphics inside of the taillights. They look dated, very dated. We don't have any sort of cool, you know, design LED strips or graphics inside here. It's just simple bulbs in there. Even the indicator right here is also a bulb, and they look a little maybe too big, these graphics, for the old generation HRV. Still a pretty decent looking design. We have this curvature going down and kind of framing the entire graphics of the rear end, makes it look maybe a little sluggish, or maybe like the graphics is pulled towards the bottom. But we still have a nice looking bumper down here, and this line kind of fades in from the sideline right here and going into the bumper and fades in this area. Nice design. I don't really have anything bad to say about the previous generation HRV, except for it looks like a 2000s car and 2000s design. So it was definitely time for an update. This is definitely by far the view that the new HRV shines. I think this looks really good from this 3/4 rear view. You just have a look at the modernization, for example, of the taillights here. We still have the biggest mass being here, and we still have that here in the width, but now we have some clearly modernized internal pieces of the taillights. This LED, which is creating a strong brand identity for Honda, with this little light bar that stretches all the way across and kind of follows the outline of the taillight itself. And we don't have the dip anymore that created this gravitational pull downwards. Now we have more of horizontal lines and going like this, creating more of a grown-up design, I would say. Maybe a little bit more boring when it comes to styling, but it looks a lot better because you can still tell that this is a Honda by looking at the taillights. The taillights, same story here as in the Honda Civic. They look maybe a little oversized, but it doesn't matter because it is an HRV. It's not supposed to look like a big SUV, so it kind of works on the Honda Civic now that I've seen it many times out on the roads, and also the HRV. Maybe I would like to shrink them down a little bit, but I think it looks pretty good as they are. The only thing I would change here are these wheels. I think these wheels are just too small and the tires are sticking too far in this car, but I know not a lot of people are gonna do that to their HRVs because I guess people buying HRVs maybe aren't into modifying their cars, but that's something I would definitely do. Last but not least, let's have a look at the interior, and here you can also see the major changes, modernization of the old looking 2000s interior right here. We have all the styling features of 2000s and the lines and graphics of that era as well. It's a very functional design, as you can see, but it doesn't compare at all to the beautiful new interior of the HRV. I love this part where it just cuts through all the way to the steering wheel with this vent right here, and it has a clean design with this display stuck on top of the dash. Looks a lot better than the integration that Toyota has, for example. I like this better when we just have a clear rectangle and don't add any plastic styling features all the way to frame this thing. And we have a pretty traditional looking gauge cluster right here. It looks great. It's a Honda HRV. What else do you expect? I think it's a beautiful looking interior, very functional, and it doesn't have any unnecessary things going on for it. So I'm excited for the HRV. I'm gonna have to wait for my final judgment of this design until I see it out on the streets. I feel like the front end graphics and elements, they just don't connect well with each other. They connect well in the rear, but for some reason Honda didn't really nail the front end design, in my opinion, of the HRV. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.